Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome into Week 14 Dynasty Takeaways. It's Brandon and Scott. We're back again. A few more weeks, Scott. The fantasy playoffs are right on the precipice. In 4 hours, we're gonna know or not know if we've made the playoffs for many of our teams. Although there are some leagues that already started in Week 14, but for the most part, many people there. This is going to be it. This game will determine whether or not they make or break their their fantasy season. All the hard work, all the 3.5 months of putting into it is all for tonight. So how you doing, my friend?
I am good. It is hopefully not a day where, I find myself, Brandon, many weeks thinking I got to get more sleep and usually try to start the week off strong on Mondays, right? Like start falling asleep during that Monday night game and hopefully I'm asleep by the time it's over. And I think the last 3 weeks I found myself up after it's over, midnight or later Eastern, and refreshing my sleeper. Oh, has it updated yet? You know what I mean? Refreshing my MFLs and updated. I don't want to see that tonight. I want to be able to wake up tomorrow morning with my cup of coffee and just look like everything is fresh going into week 15. So I'm doing well. End of the regular season tonight. Seems like it was just yesterday that we started the season, but here we are. So looking forward to some fun discussion tonight with some things we've been talking about in our community.
Yeah, for sure. For those who maybe haven't heard yet, Justin Herbert is active. He still hasn't taken any snaps uh, underneath in the pretty much everything's going to be in the shotgun tonight, Scott, I would imagine. So, um, but yeah, Mr. Jordan Jackson says new season. New season is almost here. It's almost here. But one of the things I wanted to talk about, and we kind of chatted about this, offline beforehand, but the trajectory of some of these rookie quarterbacks, because yeah, we kind of saw Cam Ward. He started off the season. And then Jackson Dart came in around week 4. And now over the last few weeks, we've seen Tyler Shuck and we've seen Shadur Sanders. And I think from a dynasty landscape, Ray posed the question yesterday on X. There's so many different potential quarterback landing spots, and there's not enough 2026 quarterbacks. And we'll talk about the draft in a little while, but 2 spots that are close to the top of the list are the Cleveland Browns and the New Orleans Saints, who just so happens they're 4th and 5th right now in the standings for the draft order, right? So Cleveland was right now sitting at the 104, and New Orleans is sitting at the 105. But Scott, let's talk about Shadur and let's talk about Shuck, not necessarily from a X's and O's standpoint. That's not what you're here for. If you want that, go over to Ray's page and follow him, and he'll have some more breakdown on that. But we're looking at from a dynasty lens, Scott. Let's talk about Shadur and Shuck, because over the last few weeks they've looked better. Right, their first performances were probably not great, but over the last couple weeks, Shuck and Shadur have probably earned themselves into the rest of the 2025 season, but potentially even into the 2026 season. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on those 2 guys and just kind of how we can maybe view them from a dynasty perspective.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring these 2 up because I do think these are the 2 that there's going to be a lot of discussion on going into the offseason. The Browns are the obvious one to start with. I'm just looking right now at some quarterback efficiency data. So just wanted to see, I hadn't looked this up for a couple weeks, and I just wanted to see kind of like where these guys land amongst everybody else in the NFL. Now, let's keep in mind they're rookies. It's been well publicized, I don't want to say disdain, but many shots fired on Cam Ward for his passing efficiency or his quarterback efficiency. And he started for day 1, and it's fair to assume his situation, at least at the very beginning of the year, was very poor. He was thrown into a fire that was almost hotter than anybody could have expected, right? But if you just look at where he ranks amongst everybody in the NFL, and I'm using enough dropbacks or enough plays under center so that we can get Shadur in the sample size as well. So there's 44 that qualify for the year, Brandon. Cam Ward ranks 40th. So even though he's gotten better, we're still looking at like a bottom 5-10% quarterback in the league. But then you look at these other guys and shocking, you know who's last in the league?
Is that JJ McCarthy?
He's actually second to last.
Good okay. Call. He got better. Yesterday made him a lot better.
You got a little bit better yesterday. But the worst in the league thus far is actually Shadur Sanders. So I don't think you can look at Shadur Sanders' play and say he's ironclad, earned the job for next year. He's the starter. Now, he has been named the starter the rest of the year. But I think that conversation and Tyler Shuck, I mean, again, these are rookies. Tyler Shuck ranks 35th, right above Geno Smith and right below, well, the guys that aren't starting anymore. So let's just say Jake Browning, Russell Wilson, those guys were not good enough from the get-go and basically got demoted to never going to start again. So Shuck's been a little better than Ward, who's been a little bit better than Shadur. Dylan Gabriel's also really bad. Jackson Dart is okay, middle of the pack. But I think for the most part, all of these guys haven't necessarily just earned a second year. But let's talk about the Browns first. I think with the Browns, like there's obviously, and I think we can all admit this is going to go into the dynasty value discussion that I'm going to talk to you about. There's some sentiment with Shadur, right? There's some ADV. There is some, we want him to succeed. There's some popularity. There's a lot of narrative that goes along with whether he should be the future starter. There's also the fact that, Brandon, he's on the Browns. This team hasn't found a quarterback in 25 years. So they've let a lot of guys with less talent, less pedigree, less hopium have windows of chances above Shadur Sanders. You know what I mean? So it's a trend for them to actually go with a guy like this and give him another year. And then you have the Watson contract that is looming. We've both looked at that. I'll take a look at it on Over the Cap. They cannot get out of it. It is detrimental to cut him only because you're basically eating about 36% of your cap to not have him on the team. And you'd probably have to have like another quarterback in the room if you got rid of him. You know what I mean? So at worst, he plays like the Jameis role to start the year, where he's an expensive third string quarterback that is there for, people are probably laughing, but wisdom, guidance, whatever it is, right? Forget about him even starting, because I think it's fair to say if they don't even want to play Deshaun Watson ever again, but I think we agree, he's going to be on the Browns, right? They're not going to eat his cap. They're not going to cut him. They're never going to trade him. He's on the Browns. You agree?
He's there for at least one more year. After that, They have a bunch of void years, but yes, he is there, probably be the vet presence.
Okay. Now, there's still the question of whether Kevin Stefanski gets fired. I think if he does, you have a better chance of this quarterback room being broken up. Meaning I think they could ship off, because it seemed like Stefanski kind of deferred to Dylan Gabriel a little bit over Shadur. But if he's gone, you could see them maybe trading Dylan Gabriel. And I think if that's the case, and they do pick, currently the Browns pick 4th. They have the strength of schedule tiebreaker over everybody else that has 3 wins. And so, like, if they're picking in the top 2 or top 3, and they don't have to pay a lot to move up into the spot to get the QB1, and they fire Stefanski, Brandon, I can see them going quarterback. You know what I mean? I could see them
absolutely
biting the bullet and saying, you know what, we're going to take one. We're going to have a Deshaun, Shadur, rookie QB room, and we're going to let things shake out. But I don't think if they necessarily say they're rolling it back next year with the 3 they have currently, we know that's probably going to be a bad quarterback room. But I think that would be the likelihood that I would bet that they do that going forward rather than picking one at the very top of the draft. That's just my thought. Could go either way. What do you think? I mean, do you think they run it back? Because if so, then we can talk about what is Shadur's value in that case.
I really do think it depends on where they land in the draft order, because we talked about this afternoon. Like, you know, we joke about like sleeper toilet bowl matchups. Like, there are every week from now until week 17, there is the 10 teams that are at the top of the draft order: the Giants, Las Vegas Raiders, Tennessee Titans, Cleveland Browns, New Orleans Saints, Commanders, Jets, Arizona, Falcons, and Bengals. There is at like some point over the next 3 to 4 weeks, each one of like, I feel like each one of them plays one another in some capacity. Like, there's multiple games, like the Giants play the Commanders.
Tell me which of these games the Browns win. Okay.
Sure.
At the Bears.
No, probably not.
Buffalo.
No.
At home versus Pittsburgh. That could be a sneaky game
one
where
that could be one of those ugly.
Lose. Okay.
That could be one where the Steelers just show up like they did yesterday.
Okay.
And they can sneak one through.
Bengals.
Unlikely, but possible. Depends
right now,
on what
I'd
the Bengals
say no,
are doing.
but that could be a game where neither team cares.
Right. And Jake Browning's out there.
Best, let's just give the Browns the benefit of the doubt. they win one of those two between the Steelers and Bengals. And I think they'll easily, we don't think the Steelers are good, but the Steelers will be almost a touchdown favorite against the Browns, regardless. 5 points, 4 points, they'll be favored. So the Browns will be underdogs in every game. So let's just assume the Browns don't win any more games. You already mentioned it, man. The Titans play the Saints. The Saints play the Jets. Giants play the Raiders.
And the Commanders, who are all in that same range.
The Browns really, with all these other matchups, have a very high likelihood of moving up a spot or two, which then the conversation changes. So now that we talk through it, regardless of how it plays out, if they're picking in the top 3, there's going to be a temptation to take a quarterback. Then you have to look at their coach. But let's just assume we don't know about Stefanski. We don't know where they finish in the draft order, but let's assume they're getting a top 3 pick. Shador's dynasty value. Because I think he's much less likely than Tyler Shuck to be the starter going into next year. But I also know that there is a lot of support for him, and I think this is why they're giving him the rest of the year. If he wins 2 of those games and he pushes them out of the top 6, he's kind of earning his stripes, right? He's earning his way for the team not to replace him with the quarterback 1 in the draft. They could still trade up. They also have that Jags pick, which is actually getting worse and worse by the week. But I think if he can win 2 of those games, I think it seals the fate. They're not drafting a quarterback next year. They're going to roll with the 3 they have. He'll be the starter to start the year if he earns it. And then who knows? You hope that you don't have to go back to Gabriel, and I'm betting the Browns hope they don't have to go back to Watson. So that feels like Shadur would be very locked in going into the year, right? And then it just depends on, can he continue to get better? He'll have a whole offseason where he's the guy. What's his value if that's the case? Because I think that's the way we're trending right now.
If he is the guy, let's just say they bolster the lines instead of going with a quarterback. If he starts, I think
before we even know any of that,
I think right now you could probably get out for what you probably paid for him, which was like early 3rd. I don't know. I don't know if
you don't think you can get a second if you spam.
You might, but what are the odds? If I got a late second for Shador, sure. I'll re-roll. Here's the thing. I'll re-roll when we know more information. On somebody like Shadur, I'll re-roll. It's nothing against the kid. It's nothing against his talent. It's just we've seen this so many times in fantasy that when you get into a 50-50 situation going into an off season, and there are so many hurdles like free agency, the draft, the preseason, the training camps, I'm not saying you got to wait until August to go buy them back, but once the draft is over, what's the price? Let's just just fast forward to May 1st. They don't take a quarterback day 1. Friday night, we're sitting there, round 3. They still haven't taken one. Now what? Now with every day that passes in the draft, his value goes up another quarter of a round.
I think given this situation that they have with the quarterbacks they already have on the roster, the landmine for Shadur is they pick one in the top 3. If they're getting to the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round, it doesn't make sense to add another Dylan Gabriel to the roster when you're probably going to stick with Deshaun. And we know if they're going to cut Deshaun, they're going to probably do that earlier rather than later.
Yep.
It's going to be a post-June 1 cut, and they're going to decide to just eat the salary. And it's a $80 million dead cap hit. So, right there, all their cap space is gone. So, kind of feels like if you get to round 2 and they haven't taken a quarterback, they're probably not going to go the Tyler Shuck route. They're probably not going to go the 3rd round quarterback route. So, I think you're pretty safe. So,
yeah, let's just say, I would say you're right. He probably needs to get through Thursday. If he gets through Thursday and they don't take a quarterback of day 1, I think that Shadur's probably at least locked in for at least the minimum 4 weeks.
Especially if they pass on the QB1. If there's an obvious pick and they're picking at 2 and they trade back a spot and they let the Saints take the QB1, or you know what I mean? They make it clear they were not going quarterback, kind of like they did last year.
Correct.
They made it clear they had no interest in taking a quarterback until they took Gabriel. They were not trading up for Shadur. They actually traded back, and they didn't care who the quarterback 2 or quarterback 3 was going to be. So Okay.
And I would even say this, and I kind of want to address that. Like, it's not that he has more hurdles than he had this year. It's that folks, Shadur is one of those guys in the market that you either love him or you hate him. He is not he's not going to get the benefit of the doubt by the dynasty community. That's just not what's going to happen. People are either going to be for him or people are going to be against him. And that's fine. There's polar. I mean, I remember the discourse, Scott, you remember Will Levis 2 years ago. Like, people loved him or hated him. There was no in between. And once you put him on your fantasy roster, there really wasn't much you could do with him once he was on your roster. And I think for folks who have Shadur, they're not selling him for a third. I think that's where the disconnect's going to be. Nobody's going to want to, like, if you offer your third right now for Shadur, it's instant decline to almost every Shadur manager. They want an early second, but you don't want to pay an early second. You certainly don't want to pay a 27-second. So there's just going to be this disconnect between you're not really wanting to sell, but you also don't want to have the risk on your team as well. So it's one of those, like, Shadur's one of those weird quarterback, and I don't want to call it weird like he's a weird quarterback, but just like a weird value discrepancy where he's not really a third, but he's not really worth like a mid-second right now.
Well, now that I look a little bit closer at where, and this is just KTC, he's obviously flown up KTC boards over the last 24 hours. He is currently valued per KTC higher than Tyler Shuck. We'll get to Tyler Shuck in a second. He is valued higher than Mac Jones. You agree with that?
Sure, because he's starting.
Okay. Higher than Jacoby Brissett, who I think has an equal chance next year potentially to find a gig. Hell, the Cardinals may just run with Jacoby Brissett again because they're in a similar boat with Kyler. It's not as hard to get out of as Deshaun, but
I think it depends on where Jacoby is. But yeah, I mean, I could see that one being like,
could it be one of Jacoby or Shadur is playing for next year's job? Because both those teams could pick in the top two. Like, the Cardinals are another team that currently they're not as high as the Browns, but I mean, the Cardinals are a couple losses away from being in the top four.
I mean, they're pretty rough in the early parts of games. They look really nice in garbage time, but you look at those
tiebreaker. They have the current tiebreaker against every other team with 3 wins. So, like, they're going to have to make sure they have a worse record than everybody else that's tied with them. But that could be one where if the Cardinals lose out and the Titans pick up a win, they would move below the Cardinals. Giants pick up a win. Browns pick up a win. Saints pick up a win. I mean, Washington beats the Giants. All of a sudden, the Cardinals are picking where the Browns are right now. Maybe even a spot higher.
And you know what? That could also be like something where if, let's say Kyler's used as the trade chip to move with the first to move up if they want to. I'm not saying it happens, but that's it could be an interesting dynamic.
Yep. So Tyler Shuck, I mean, and I didn't say this, but Shadur is right below Tua Tagovailoa, JJ McCarthy, and Kyler Murray.
That's probably about.
He puts up one more decent game, he'll pass those guys because basically one of those guys isn't starting. Another one, yes. I think Tua can only drop because he's already where like you hope all these guys get to. He's really not producing for fantasy, but he's technically starting every week. And then McCarthy's just a complete wild card. So I can see him getting up there into the top 25-ish.
Sure.
Shador finishes strong, and he's passing guys like Michael Penix, who could be out for next year. Matt Stafford, who, as good as he's been, like, he's still year to year. Like, I could see Shador getting close to the top 20 to 25.
Here's what I think Shador has done, Scott. Shador has given himself enough tape that he's going to be a backup quarterback in the league at the very minimum. And
he's made it clear he's better than the other guy they have on the team. Not Deshaun. He's in a different tier than Dylan Gabriel to the Browns. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Which that was a barrier to him even earning the backup job going forward. So even if you're thinking of this as an open competition next year, he's still probably an overwhelming favorite to be the starter going in unless something goes awry. Let's talk Tyler Shuck real quick. So I said he was a little bit better than Shador, way better than Cam Ward, which is, again, we're not saying anything negative about Cam Ward, but like the fact that he's in the range below Tyler Shuck. I mean,
it's just the facts are the stats are the stats, right? You can't manipulate those.
And it was your opinion that the Saints, I mean, their schedule, Brandon, is Tyler Shuck, that win yesterday, beating a playoff team, and I say that kind of loosely because the Buccaneers haven't looked like a playoff team for 2 months. But their remaining schedule, like, would you be shocked if the Saints at home this weekend gave the Panthers a game? Doesn't it feel like we're ready for a Panthers, like, just terrible game here?
We're waiting for Bryce to be just back to what he kind of is.
Then they host the Jets. That's another game they will actually be favored. Then they'll play at the Titans, which, yes, it's on the road. Both. Titans are probably favored, but I mean, their schedule is Panthers, home versus Jets, at Tennessee, and then at Atlanta. Oh, yeah, another team that's terrible and has lost a ton of games in a row. So
let's give them 4, maybe 5.
I do not think the Saints are picking anywhere close to the top 5. If they win 2 more games, I think they may finish outside the top 8. And if that's the case, let's assume that outside the top 6.
Yep.
You agree Tyler Shuck is the starter next year, right? He is getting his Davis Mills. He's getting his extra year. Locked in, no competition. And I think they like Rattler, too. Like, I don't think this is a team that drafts another Tyler Shuck. I think they just roll with what they have. So
there's no reason for. Well, I think, from a financial standpoint, they're still kind of reeling from a little bit of the previous, from Dennis Allen and Sean Payton. So they're still kind of like, they're still financially, like, they're almost in the same boat as Cleveland. So, like, the last thing that they want to be doing is taking on let's just say a top 8 quarterback contract, which is going to be, even if it is, even a defensive end, like, they could move back. Like, they would be a trade candidate to move back.
Well, we agree these teams, both the Browns and the Saints, are not going to be in the conversation for a $10 million Jacoby Brissett.
Correct.
A trade and extend for Mac Jones. None of that, right? They're not going to take on Anthony Richardson's first round contract.
They don't need to. They got a second round.
But none of these teams are not. They don't want to pay another quarterback, right?
No,
like, that's not even a conversation. You agree?
Correct. The only thing they could do is the only thing I could see them do is if they trade Rattler, they would go buy another Spencer Rattler in the draft. That's all they would because it would be the same cost, right? They could just defer, like, because Rattler would be in year 3. They could just push the cost out. Like, if they wanted to go get a Cade Klubnik type, I'm not saying Cade is, but that kind of, like, somebody behind Shuck that's gonna not really.
That's a pretty lateral financial move, though, isn't it? If they think Rattler fits their system and he's been there for 2 years, like,
why not? Why not? Right?
He's their backup. They know what he is if he has to get in there. It feels like that's a perfect cheap quarterback room to delay pushing in another year. And if they fall in their face, guess what? There's 3 or 4 guys in 2027 that are going to be right there for him in the top 10, top 8.
There's a guy in Austin. There's a guy in Austin, Texas that I think that Saints fans might want.
I think that's a way more ironclad assumption is the Saints just go in next year with what they have. So
right. I think Shuck is probably, again, depends.
Should he be ahead of Shadur?
Probably.
Okay. He's behind him. So that kind of speaks to the ADV of one name versus the other.
Well, I think the thing that's always been on Shuck is that he's almost as old as I am, and I'm in my mid-30s. So, that's always been the thing, is that Shuck has always been viewed as an older prospect. Therefore, he can't produce value, Scott, and that's not the case. Dynasty, we don't care.
With the level these guys are at, are we even thinking long-term?
No.
Or are we just thinking, hopefully they give me a couple bridge years at best?
Give me 2026, and anything you give me after 2026 is gravy.
Correct.
Right. I think with a lot of these guys, and I think we do this a lot with like these backup type quarterbacks or these bridge type quarterbacks is, they're valuable to the team that they're on. Right. Shuck is valuable to the team he's on. Why? Because he's producing. He's producing and he's playing. Right. But when he's not playing, he becomes just like a disposable asset. Kind of like if Jacoby Brissett was to go back to the bench and Kyler somehow starts week 1 next year, nobody's going to care about Jacoby, and his KTZ value is going to plummet lower than Cam Ward. Like, that's like,
do you even care about the profile stuff when you're talking 2nd, 3rd, 4th round rookie picks? You know what I mean? Because the expectation is just somewhat of a window where I can use them. That's it. Mm-hmm. There isn't a long-term, I need him to be a locked-in starter. He's too old. It's not going to work out. Like, we have to kind of change our thinking. Now, if you're talking about a mid-first round player, I can see nitpicking on that stuff. But when you're talking a 212, who cares? You know what I mean?
Who cares? Yeah, who cares? You're taking the shot. Now, what is his dynasty value? I don't think Shuck will be worth the first, but I think he's worth a solid second. Like, I think if somebody offered you the 205 right now, Scott, you're Tyler Shuck, I give you my 205. Would you take it? Is that a fair cash out price?
I think in this class, I mean, if you're playing a quarterback a certain way, that's probably the price. I think there'll be people that would be like, I'm going to get what I can out of Shuck for the rest of the year. Maybe I'm using him now because I wasn't starting him before, but now I need to. But then trade him away. And I do think the draft order will tell the story here, Brandon. If the Saints are picking in the top 3, the sell window on Tyler Shuck's over until after the draft. If they're picking 8th with the Raiders, the Browns, the Jets, the Cardinals, all those teams ahead of them, like the Saints are not probably getting a quarterback. You know what I mean? Like I think the draft order will tell the story more so than even with the Browns because the Browns are a little bit more of a wild card. But
the other wild card too to the draft, Scott, is how many quarterbacks declare. Because if it's only Mendoza, because here's the thing, if it's only Mendoza at the top, let's say Dante Moore goes back, as we possibly think he could do at Oregon. If he goes back and Mendoza's the only like round 1 grade quarterback, if you're picks, even if you're pick 6 or 8, do you really even want to move up? Or would you just wait until 2027? You know?
Yeah, the supply is going to be so short that the cost to move up for I just said it earlier today in the Discord. If Mendoza is a B quarterback, do you pay A prices to move up and get him because there's only one? And smart teams probably say, you know what, we have to look at quarterback position this year more creatively.
Right.
So now if there's let's say Dante Moore wins 3 playoff games and he has a run like Riley Leonard did last year, but he's actually a good quarterback, right? Then, okay, now you have 2 in the conversation that could go in the top 5, which means there's double the teams now that can address the position. And, you know, if these guys declare, they're probably not declaring so they can go in the 3rd. You know what I mean? Yep. Like if we get a Dante Moore run and he's good and there's going to be steam to push those guys at the very top because there's a big need and there's not a lot of supply out there. And we've talked about the free agency market this year. Like even some of these bridge guys, Davis Mills, Jacoby Brissett, Mac Jones, they're not even free agents. Jameis. They're not free agents. As much as people are going, oh, Mac Jones, he'll be starting somewhere next year. Yeah, if the Niners trade him.
Yeah.
If they don't.
And you know what's gonna, and you know what, all of those guys that we just talked about, Jameis, Mac, Jacoby, you know what they're on? Team-friendly deals. Yeah. Those 3 teams are not selling for any 4th in the NFL draft. They know what the supply is.
Yes,
they know that
you'd have to pay to get them. Like Davis Mills, who would have ever thought we'd have this conversation with Davis Mills? But you know who he's probably really valuable to? The Texans. With their defense, like that's probably a team that goes, we need a second. And teams call in to try to get a quarterback are like, we'll give you a 6th. You know, like there's just not going to be trades like that unless a team really commits. So the thought of, there's all these options. Yeah, until, you know, what would you rather do if you're the Raiders? Trade a 2nd for Davis Mills or draft your Tyler Shuck? You know what I mean?
A bunch. So I mean, yeah. And I think that's where kind of this whole question came from, Scott, was really like, you know, I know it's Dynasty Takeaways, but this is really like a takeaway that I think because we can't really do much in the trade markets because most people don't have trade deadline. Most people's trade deadlines have already passed. But when you start to like forecast, and I think that's probably what we'll end up doing the next couple of weeks here is just looking at certain spots where it's like, if I've got guys like Shadur, if I've got Shucks, if I've got which I have a few of those. I have a few of those situations, and some of them are on teams where I'm contending. Some of them are on teams where, you know, I'm not contending. And what do I do? What do I do in those situations? Because if I have those 2 players, I am rooting actively that Mendoza's the only quarterback coming out because there's there's a 50-50 chance one of them could get their dynasty value sunk. But if there's only one, but if there's both, then I have a little bit more risk going into the offseason. But I think for me, Shadur has earned at least the minimum, a few starts to begin next season. I think Shuck definitely has the bridge at the very minimum, as long as he's healthy and he doesn't completely, you know, poop the bed out the next 4 weeks. But it looks like, you know, based on their schedule, I wouldn't be surprised if Shuck wins 2 more games. It really wouldn't surprise me at all. And they're picking 10th or 11th, and now they're out of the quarterback race, and now they're trying to stay on playing and draft some Draft some defensive guys. Drafts, shore up. Maybe get another wide receiver to go alongside Olave. Like that would be a fun spot. Like those, like I think they can do better. I think they can surround Shuck to see if he's the answer, or to see if they just want to build around this team so that they can bring somebody in 2027.
Here's the guys I'm interested in. Marcus Mariota is one of the few that has started in the league a lot and is a free agent. That's one that I could see him making one more run at trying to be a bridge starter. Don't know where that's going to be, but wouldn't you say he's shown enough this year, shown that he can still start fairly consistently on a pretty bad team? I mean, I don't know if you've looked at the numbers, Brandon. They're just as bad with Jaden Daniels as they are with Marcus Mariota.
The Commanders,
it isn't like when Jaden comes in, they're way better. Like they're just as bad, if not even worse.
That team is just went from great to abysmal and really fast.
It has. The other guys I'm interested in, Trey Lance, Zach Wilson. Those guys have pedigree, and they've never really gotten their second opportunity truly. Doesn't mean they will, but those are two that I have a couple leagues that are contract leagues where when you're out of the playoffs and I got eliminated, you have to cut all your 1-year deals. Those are the ones I'm kind of holding on to. I'll cut the veteran backups, you know what I mean? But those guys, I think you never know when a guy with pedigree like that gets a chance. Malik Willis is another one. I think the market will be very healthy for him. I think he's one of those guys that probably, if you look back, was maybe drafted in an accurate spot. He just was a little bit of a disappointment for Dynasty, if you remember. And then he landed on the Titans, like the very end of the Vrabel era, and it was awful. So it was like, he probably didn't get a fair shake, but he's probably a guy that I think the NFL views fairly highly. He could get a chance. And then the other ones that I'm still willing to pick up, you know who will get another shot? Anthony Richardson. You know who will get another shot? Will Levis. And both of them are not going to be on the team they're on right now. Like those are two others where like those names are the ones where I'm thinking if they bring a guy into camp and a team goes, let's see what this guy has because he used to be a first-round pick or he used to start and we think the previous coaching staff didn't know how to use him. Those are the guys I'm holding on to. Like those are one or two of those names is going to end up with a job and you're going to go, where did that come from? And then you never know who the next, I mean, we didn't know the next Baker or the next Darnold when they were, you know what I mean? They were on the scrap heap.
Geno Smith. Took him 9 years to find one.
That's an even better example of a guy that no one even had on their radar 7 years ago. And here we are. He's still technically a starter right now. So like those guys are the ones that when the quarterback carousel plays out, they're probably going to land. One or two is going to land. It's not going to be Mac Jones. It's not going to be Jameis. It's not going to be Davis Mills. Those are probably not going to be guys on new teams. It's not going to be Jacoby Brissett. So, and they're going to replace, last one we got to talk about, Brandon, Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones.
I mean,
that's the Daniel Jones managers. What do you do with Daniel Jones, man? Going from 6 weeks ago, he was at the top of the world. He was all the way up to like quarterback 16, 17 on KTC. It was like, he's going to get that massive. I mean, you remember the conversations, right? When they traded for Sauce, he's getting a $40 million deal and he's the Colts starter for years and they're surrounding him with weapons. This offense is one of the top 5 in the league. And they kind of went downhill, started to play poorly, and now he's the torn Achilles, potentially even out all of next year, Brandon. I know people are like, oh, he'll be back in 9 months, but even if he's back, you saw him play as a Giants fan. If I told you he has no mobility anymore, how confident are you in his passing ability just to be for just a year? How confident are you as a statue passer?
He's the current Kirk Cousins. That's what he becomes.
And you know what?
That's not
without the pocket passing ability of Kirk. Kirk Cousins in his prime could feed weapons. For as much as people gave him shit, he didn't win. He, wasn't a difference maker. Go back and look at the prime Kirk Cousins from like 2019 to 2022. I mean, this was 4,600 yards. You know what I mean? Like, that's never been Daniel Jones. So to think he has now a torn Achilles and he's going to be just a locked and loaded good starter. I mean, he's quarterback 20 on KTC, Brandon. How far does that drop?
Oh, he's got a problem. Here's the thing. Daniel Jones will probably start next year. Probably he might not start week 1, but he's going to be pretty close.
Yeah, what's your thoughts on, because I tweeted that injury cost him probably literally $100 million.
Yes,
And I don't think that's crazy. Talk about your thoughts on his contract, though, because I'm coming around to what you were saying. He's not going to get a big term extension, but he's probably staying with the Colts, right?
Yeah. So I said this last night in our group chat, right? The infamous group chat that was talked about this morning on Wake Up. I believe that Daniel Jones is probably going to be an Indianapolis Colt next year. And he probably gets signed to like a 1 year, $8, $9, $10 million, depending on what their cap situation lands out, with like incentives to get to 14, 15. Because I think what's going to happen is they want to keep him in-house. They want to keep his therapy and all the stuff that he's going to do now once he gets the surgery. They're going to want it. Who's going to know the medical history better than them, right? Sanford, whoever comes knocking on the door asking about Daniel Jones is going to have to ask the Colts anyway. So they already know where he is in progress with his rehab and everything, and he can kind of just stay in that system. And truth be told, that was probably he played the best in that system, right? Even though he kind of wasn't as efficient the last few weeks coming off the bye. The reality is he was their quarterback, and he probably was on pace to go for a 3-year, $130 million contract. So you're right. He probably lost the opportunity at least $100 million this offseason. I still think he can probably play in the league. I think it's probably going to be a bit more of a statue, at least in the 2026 year. Hopefully by 2027, he can kind of be a little bit more mobile, but I think I just feel bad for the guy. I really do. Like he didn't get the fair shake after he signed the deal with the Giants. He got, he was the poster child of failure during the Daboll and Shane era. He finally found they gave him a cut. They cut him. They put him to Minnesota, and then he found his spot. He found his new lease on life, and the dude was thriving. And then he just fell apart, and his leg fell apart. He probably should have sat. He gutted through an injury. It sucks. It sucks for the guy. It sucks for the guy because he actually looked like a pretty decent quarterback. Now, from a dynasty perspective, people are probably going to either cut him or liquidate him for very cheap. Like, Scott, would you be surprised if you see Daniel Jones for anything more than a third?
Well, here's the exercise. Weeks? I'm just going to go down the list, and you tell me to stop when I get to somebody that you would take Daniel Jones over.
Okay.
And if I don't hear anything from you, I'll just move on to the next name. Cam Ward, Bryce Young, Matt Stafford, Kyler Murray, JJ McCarthy, Michael Penix.
Stop. I'd take him over Penix. Well, even though
Penix is in a similar situation.
And I would even say Penix might not even start until like October, November. Okay. Like there's a real chance that Daniel Jones could start week 1. Like I would put it
probably
at like 40%.
On similar timelines.
But
if
yes,
not,
probably close.
Penix having the multiple injuries to the same knee is probably problematic. So, Tua.
Yeah, I'd take him over Tua. Even though Tua is playing right now, Tua's not the same Tua of 2 years ago.
So that's the line. Daniel Jones does not get to the Tua, Shadur, Tyler Shuck range. He's still ahead those guys for you?
Yeah, even though I didn't love him as a Giants quarterback. Like the reality is he can play at a decent level, and he's shown flashes of high level. Now, does that mean and he's done it this year?
I don't think I'm taking him over Tyler Shuck or Shadur. I think the wild card of what I could do with those guys if the window is right is just because here's the downside of Daniel Jones is you pray he signs with the Colts. But if he does, he's just going to be out of sight, out of mind until July when you start hearing about he's throwing, he's running. You know what I mean? Like he's not going to be an asset that is going to have the peaks and valleys of supply and demand in February.
He's the guy that I would probably, if I'm trying to get off of Shadur or Shuck before the draft, I would trade into Daniel Jones and a plus.
Yeah,
because I agree. Because I agree that both of those guys probably have better dynasty value right now than Daniel Jones. But that doesn't mean that I can't.
He's Kirk Cousins before they drafted Penix, right?
Sure.
He's coming into the year of like, man, I don't know if the guy's going to be in a specific quarterback situation, but I don't know. He feels like just you're not going to be able to do much with Daniel Jones. So you're right. That's a great point. He's the destination quarterback that you kind of tear off of when you're just looking for a body that you think could start next year.
Yeah, I think that's like, for me, that's just the direction. I mean, I don't think he's not dust. He's not dead for 2026. I mean, shoot, we've watched Aaron Rodgers still have moments, right? So I think that there's still moments that are left in Daniel Jones's NFL career. From a dynasty perspective, you're probably not going to you're not getting a first anymore, which is what you could have gotten 4 weeks ago. Like, I think gone are the days of Daniel Jones being a relevant dynasty asset. I think what he is probably in that bucket of guys that when he starts, you're happy. When he's not, you're just like, well, he's just going to collect dust down here in the bench.
Is he already to like Geno range? Where he was a few years ago? Like, that's where he just is going to be, and you're hoping for more production than ever asset value going forward. He's like an accelerated version of where like Tua is. Don't you think it's kind of the same thing with Tua? I mean, you said you'd take Dimes over Tua. I think a lot of people would disagree with that.
Sure, they would. But I mean, what has Tua done over the last 6-8 weeks that made you feel like any sort of level that I'm like, yeah, I need to have him over the injured guy?
Tua's been bottom 30% in the league for 2 years now. And he also, he doesn't score fantasy points either. So you have the quarterback 26 in scoring and a bad NFL QB that you're just praying keeps his job.
The only reason why we're even like, you would even take Tua is because, he signed a contract. Okay. We've seen guys get cut from massive contracts. So I wouldn't like that. Like, again, when we're looking at production, sure, he's got Achane and he's got Waddle. He's got talent, but like, if Daniel Jones was to go back to Indianapolis, he's got Michael Pittman, Jonathan Taylor, Alec Pierce, Tyler Warren. Like, it's not like he doesn't have, like, he's not devoid of talent either on that team. It's just they lost some efficiency in the second half of the season. They were super efficient in the beginning of the season. They lost some efficiency and then they got hurt. And sometimes there's just nothing you could do about that variance.
Yeah, well, we have 3 minutes left. You want to hit the real quick rapid fire, what to do with these injured receivers that are seemingly potentially out for the year?
Yeah, and I think it kind of comes from this question from Aloha Panda. What should I do with a super team that's been bleeding value all year long with Jets, Buka, Genti, Hampton, Laporta, Rome, Neighbors, Ladd, Hendo, and now JT all taking hits in value? And, there's a couple other wide receivers that we could put in that conversation. What do you do with a guy like with Marvin Harrison Jr.? What do you do with a guy like Drake London? Because the reality is, Scott, like, playoffs are next week, and there's a lot of teams that probably were built around the young hopium of Rome, Marv, Drake London. And now all of a sudden you have none of them. Like, you don't have any one of those. You have no confidence that any one of those three is going to start. And now what do you do?
Well, so there's two things. I mean, you mentioned the names, Rome, Drake London, throw T Higgins in there, Marv, like, they all could be done for the year. And so you have to make the decision. If you're trading them, you're probably not getting their quote unquote dynasty value. So you really have to do an analysis of like, do I have to trade them to fix the problem? Like, you're not going to fix the problem. Like, you're not going to just trade Drake London for another guy in the same range. Correct. And just replace him, right? The market doesn't work like that. But you do have to assess, like, where did these guys fit on my team? What were the odds I was going to win with them? Like, be realistic. If you're in 5th place and you're losing Drake London, that's not the death sentence to your team. The death sentence is probably you were in 5th place. You know what I mean? You didn't have a high odd of winning the title anyway. So doesn't mean give up, but that doesn't mean I'm moving Drake London on 60 cents on the dollar to get a replacement wide receiver and hope that they're 75% of what Drake London was at his peak. Like, go try to fill it cheaper. There's reason that we have the Trinity tool. Go take a couple shots. You know what I mean? Go take a couple shots on guys that have high variance. I mean, Michael Wilson is one. Christian Watson is another. Like, just go take the shot. You might have to pay up a little bit. Worst case scenario, you can kind of start trimming your roster down to leaning into using some of those guys next year. Go back to listen to the Destination Dynasty pod from this week. That's what I'm going to start doing. So I don't mind adding a guy like Michael Wilson to a team, even if I have to pay a second. But you know what then I can do? That allows me a little freedom to trade Drake London in the offseason if I wanted to. I'm not saying they're equivalent, but I can shift some of my value to another spot. So that's the takeaway. And then Aloha Panda's question about, what do I do if I'm just running cold all year? and he's a member of the Discord, so appreciate him putting that question in there. But this is a 10x8, Brandon. This just highlights how hard it is to constantly maintain stud status in a 10x8. Every one of those players on that board, probably minus, I mean, even Laporta had a couple good weeks. But literally every player on that page at one point was either valued or producing or both like a stud this year. And how many of those guys on that screen do you anticipate are going to finish the year absolutely smashing? None. None.
Yeah.
Not one.
Yeah.
Hell, only half of them are healthy. But even the ones that
the only one
playing,
I can see is Hampton, and that's just wish casting.
Without their tackles, I don't know. The only reason I can see it is because that exactly. But the point is, most of the guys on there are either not healthy or Buka, Jets, Gent. Those guys aren't going to go on runs.
They're not efficient. They're just not efficient right now. Yeah.
So you have all those players on your team, and you're wondering, how do I fix it? I mean, sometimes. What did we talk about with variance last week?
You just can't fight variance sometimes. So yeah, it's hard, but playoffs are here in 3 hours. Playoffs are here. We're going to go watch the Eagles and the Chargers. Appreciate everybody tapping in. Make sure you like and subscribe to the page. Helps us out, helps get the word out there. Tap in with Scott. He's all over this channel, whether it's Trinity with Ray, Manic and Chill with Shane, Dynasty Deal Show with Shane and Ty. He's also here on Monday nights with me. So make sure you like and subscribe. If you want to become a Trades and Chill member, $3.99. Link is also below. Get you early access to the Trinity Show and the Dynasty Deal Show. But for the Week 14 episode of Dynasty Takeaways, we are out. Thank you very much. And good luck tonight in your final matchups.